can't believe I burned the shit out of my hand making fry bread.
So fucking bad.
I've made fry bread so many times and never burnt my hand like that. It's because you were here.
Yeah.
I swear it's because you were here. But tell the viewers how you felt about fry bread.
It's really good.
It's really good.
You're bringing a thing for me. Show and tell.
The story of Busco Redondo.
Oh.
Just because I was a park ranger in New Mexico, I know a lot of information about stuff. I worked at a park that was a separation site for people who were on the Navajo Long Walk, where they took the children away and sent them to Santa Fe to go to boarding schools, which is sad and a really terrible history, but also important to remember that it happened and that the United States committed a genocide, and you got to make sure you know that. But the Navajo Long Walk ended in Busco Redondo, and that is where we get fry bread because it was part of their rations. And they would pool their rations together to make fry bread because you don't need a ton of stuff. But if everybody took like their half cup of flour and brought it together, they were able to feed everyone instead of everyone kind of suffering through what they had.
That's so cool.
It's cool in a very sad way.
Yeah.
But that is why it's like very Navajo-esque. The fry bread is because it's the Navajo Long Walk. Other tribes were on the Long Walk as well, like the Apache and I think some Pueblo people, and there was a few other tribes, but yes, that's a quick crash course about fry bread. Anyway, we can actually do the intro now.
So this week we're talking about Frybread Face and me.
Hello and welcome to...
Hello, sorry!
Hello and welcome to...
Okay, start over.
It's me that says it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
You doing okay?
No.
I feel like you ate food and you got weirder. Like, what happened? You were like fine, and then you ate food, and now you're like in this weird place.
That's gonna be on my tombstone, is ate food and got weirder.
Okay, welcome to Okay, But Listen,
a review podcast.
I'm Juliana.
And I'm Caitlin.
And this week we watched Frybread Face and Me.
Yeah.
It was a movie that came out in 2008 and it hit the... Sorry. It was a movie that came out in 2023 and it hit the indie circuits. I don't know.
I'm being
I don't know
weird.
what happened.
I know what times are. No, that's...
Do
every
you?
time I put a movie down, I have to put what year it came out.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's important. It's part of... It's a thing that, like, I got in the habit of with film school is, like, so much of analyzing movies comes from knowing the context of, like, when it came out. Anyway,
I had never seen this movie before.
I had never seen it either.
My parents recommended this movie to me because they saw it at a film festival.
Mm-hmm.
Or really more, I said, hey, I thought this movie looks interesting. And they said, oh, we saw it at a film festival. Yeah, you'd probably like it.
What does that mean?
I mean, it means I'd probably like it. It's exactly what they say, exactly what they mean most of the time.
See, I think it's because of the way that my tastes go, is usually it's kind of an insult. As they're like, you'd probably like it. Usually is Caitlin's French speak for, it's kind of bad. But
you'd probably like it.
Yeah, you'd like it.
Okay, so the basic plot is it follows Billy. He's a kid who's growing up in San Diego in the 90s. And then his parents send him to the Navajo reservation to be with his grandma for the summer as they finalize their divorce. And it's about his summer on the reservation. And that's the plot.
It's such a specific genre of, like, because there's, like, summer camp movies, but then there's movies like this where it's, like, you're being sent to a family you don't really know for the summer. Like, the only example that comes to mind is Gravity Falls. But it's such a specific genre where it's like, we're sending you to this place. You've never or, like, almost never interacted with this family member. Have fun. Like, the thing, one of my notes is they have him at the diner, his parents, and they're like, you're going to go stay with your grandma. And he looks at his grandma across the table and he's like, her? And they're like, no, your mom's mom. And he's like, when am I going? Tomorrow. Go pack your shit.
I love him running out of the diner and ripping off his shirt.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that was so funny.
Well, because how old is he? He's like 11?
He's 11.
Yeah, he's very much like an 11-year-old kid. He's just so weird, and he's got his, like, little, I don't know, mannerisms.
Yeah, he's just, like, learning how to be a person still.
Yeah. No, I really liked it. One of the things that I really enjoyed as, like, a film person, the subtitles, the use of subtitles. So when it's just him talking to his grandma, she speaks in Navajo, but you don't get subtitles. And so it's only when someone else is present who speaks the language that you get the subtitles, and even then they're not like actively translating to Billy. It's just like it's a thing where you kind of know because someone who speaks the language is present, and that's when you get the subtitles.
Yes.
And I thought that was such a cool use of that, like, tool. I thought that was really cool. I enjoyed it a lot.
Same. I really liked it, and I realized I messed up the main character's name. His name is Benny.
Benny.
The guy who wrote the movie, his name is Billy.
Oh, okay.
They're definitely not the same person. They actually are exactly the same person. Yeah. Yeah, I love Benny trying to figure out how to move from the city to the res. I think that's really
because it's so drastically different. Like, not having electricity, like, they have the generator that they can only use for, like, the runtime of Starman, the only tape they have because he has bad credit at the video store. They've got the res car. They don't have a fridge, they just have coolers, which
they don't have running water.
Yeah, which is why a lot of, like, their food that they have is, like, Spam and potatoes and stuff, which we're just jumping around. We're going through all my notes as usual. But, like, that scene where they're playing restaurant.
Yeah.
It's so funny. Because they make it into a show where they've got, like, Dawn is, like, talking to the grandma. She hands her the menu that's, like, written in, like, a school folder. And the grandma's like, oh, what about this one? She's like, I'm so sorry, we're out of that one. And she's like, what about this? And it's like, I'm so sorry, we don't have that either. And she's like, oh, well, I'll go with this one. And then she, like, takes the menu and they bring the food, and it's so funny.
I love that she had a little drawn-on mustache during that bit.
And so I guess that's something to mention. So one of the big things in this movie is Benny's, like, developing his relationship with his family. And so he has Frybread face, which is his cousin, who also gets dropped off for the entire summer. But it's very much, like, because her mom, like...
We don't even see her mom.
Yeah, we don't even see her mom. She, like, pulls up in the car, gets her out, and then, like, she has a trash bag with her stuff in it.
Yeah.
And and the way the grandma interacts with her is, you know, that this just happens all the time.
It's pretty heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Where you're like, when the grandma's like, it's okay, it's not. Immediately, the grandma goes immediately onto, like, it's your mom, it's not you, you are beautiful, you are perfect. And you're like, oh, God, that's so sad.
Well, and it's so funny, too, because, like, I don't know if you have the distant cousin vibe, but, like, whenever my cousins come and visit from Iowa, it's kind of that same vibe where you, like, you're related to this person, but you have no connection to them whatsoever outside of that. And so you have, like, especially, like, when I was a kid, meeting the other kid cousins, you have that weird posturing that Dawn does, where she acts all important, and she, like, makes fun of him, and she's just like, I have things to do.
I love that she always was like, I have things to do.
I know, I have that written down. She's like, and then that's when you know that they've bonded, is she uses that excuse for him, too, where she's like, we have things to do. And that's, like, her thing to be like, I'm done with this conversation. I'm better than this, fuck off.
I do like in this movie that you could see the kids picking up on the cues from their parents. Where, like, Benny loves Fleetwood Mac, and then his dad says Stevie Nicks is a witch. And then Benny later says Stevie Nicks is a witch.
Yeah.
And we also, like, you know that Frybread face picked up, or Dawn, the character's, but, like, picked up the, like, I have places to be, or I'm busy. You can tell she picked it up from her mom, of, like, I don't have time for you kind of vibes. And it was something that I was like, okay, you can tell so much about their parents based off of what they're mimicking.
Yeah. Well, and the fact that she's so comfortable, like, is the uncle's name is Marvin.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's so comfortable just, like, being a shithead to Marvin. So she's like, you have your bad credit, you're an asshole. Like, she just said, like, is rude to him constantly. And you get the vibe of, like, she picked that up from, like, his family.
So it's interesting because it's also could be interpreted as, like, Navajo humor. So there's, like, a different type of humor for indigenous people. This is also just, like, some weird shit that is over intellectualized in my world. I know this is problematic. I know this is problematic about myself. My undergrad degree is in anthropology. And one of the classes, I don't remember how I got this book, but it was like I needed it for a class, and it was called Native Humor, and it was written by Native Americans, and it was about humor in different tribes, and so much of it is this, like, very dry smack talk that sounds insulting, but it's like an endearment because they're just telling you as it is, and it's funny if you, like, get it. But it can also be read as, like, a burn and be really mean. Like, that was one of the things the writer talks about, is, like, he felt like he was able to get that Navajo humor in there that sounds like an insult, but it's, like, a bit more just, like, deadpan.
Yeah, see, in my note at the top is I am very white.
I'm also very white.
But, no, I really enjoyed, like, just, like, weird little things. And again, I think it's ties into that humor where the auntie, Don calls her a lesbian. I died. Her hand gesture for lesbian is like the hair under the armpit. He's like, she's a lesbian. Well, how do you know? She has hairy armpits.
So funny.
That's just her thing. I really enjoyed the family dynamics because that's the whole point of this movie is, like, learning to be around different family members. But one of the things that stood out, because, again, I have, like, a big family, because my grandpa has, like, 5 siblings, or, like, my grandma is 1 in 7, so, like, I come from big family. And something that I actually put, because I'm a big kid, and I wrote talking points.
Ooh.
But one of the things that, like, resonated with me from this is, like, getting the family history, but as told by different family members, and how there's, like, an inherent bias there, where, like, and it's, like, there's revisionism, because, like, there's the thing where Dawn talks about, like, her dad. She doesn't say where he is, or she's like, she expecting
never
him.
Says where he is.
She never says where he is. She's expecting a letter from him, and everybody knows that it's because her dad is in jail, but they don't really talk about it until they have that fight in the kitchen, where, like, I feel so bad. Benny's, like, sobbing, and, like, it made and again, like, that's the thing too, is, like, you kind of don't know, or at least I didn't pick up on, like, how much he knew about why his parents were sending him away. I feel like he knew that there was problems, because, like, he has that bit where the mom is helping him pack, and he's like, where's dad? And she's like, well, he didn't come home last night.
That, and, like, the dream where he dreams that they're holding hands and are happy.
They don't really talk about it, but then they have that fight where it's put out in the open, and it stands out because suddenly they're, like, stating the facts instead of having, like, I feel like the grandma is very soft about things, and the uncle is, like, kind of a jackass when he says stuff. But that's a big thing, is, like, when you get, for my family at least, I finally got old enough to, like, hang out with the grown-ups, because if I'm, like, in between, I'm the oldest of the cousins. So before I was, like, 14, I hung out with all the babies. But then I hit 14 and would hang out with, like, the older members of the family. And so that's when you start getting the tea. But, like, if I ask my uncle about something, I get my uncle's version. But if I ask my aunt, I get my aunt's version. And then, like, the version my dad tells is, like, for example, with my sister. The version my dad gives is very, like, forgiving, very soft. He's like, oh, you know. And then I'll get my uncle who's like, yeah, she's full of shit. And so you get, like, the family gossip and, like, revisionism, and just, like, depending on who you talk to, you're going to get a different version and a different, like, side of every story.
Yeah.
And so that stood out to me in this one.
I also think it's the weight of knowing the family history is also there. It's not just like, oh, we have to know family politics. There's, like, a weight of knowing how everyone is meant to interact with everyone else. I think because of the Navajo past, and because of having genocide in your past, there's, like, an added weight of just like you have to know the family history, you have to know why everyone and how everyone's connected, because you have to, like, it,
you have to know your place in that history and how you're
Yeah.
going to continue that legacy and continue that history on.
Yeah.
Because, like, with the weaving, like,
Ugh.
she's the last one who really knows how to do the weave. The grandma is the last one who
Yeah.
actually knows how to do the weaving, and she sits the kids down and is, like, telling the story and explaining its significance. And, like, it's just really beautiful. Like, the stories she tells. The thing that made me so sad is she goes and she sells that beautiful fucking rug. She sells it to the lady at the gift shop, and you know she only got like $20 for it.
Maybe.
But that lady is gonna sell it for like $100.
It was so sad how she tells this like beautiful tale, and you see how much like love she puts into this rug to just go sell it at a gas station.
Yeah, hung up by fucking binder clips in a like gift shop.
It's just, I wrote that
like,
down too,
fake
of
pottery.
like how sad that was. It's like, oh man, just the selling out, and not like selling out of your tradition, but that like need to survive and having to do that. So this goes a little bit into the research, but speaking about the grandmother, so the guy who wrote the movie, Billy Luther, he really wanted to find somebody who was fluent in Navajo and knew about weaving. His background is in documentaries, and he's known for this one documentary called Miss Navajo. He realized like the only person he really knew who fit those categories was Miss Navajo's grandmother.
Oh wow.
So he ended up reaching out to her, and she didn't even read the script and was like, yeah, sure, I'm in. So much of this has like a documentarian kind of touch. Like once you find out that a person who makes documentaries made this.
Yeah, because I noticed the style, and yeah, as soon as you said he makes documentaries, I was like, oh, okay, that's why, okay.
Yeah, so like he didn't give the grandmother any direction. He was just like, tell us what you know about weaving. And like put a loom. He said he like went to explain to her about weaving, and she gave him a look like, bitch, please. Like, and she just went in and did it. So that whole conversation about weaving is all her, is all the actress.
That's amazing.
And he didn't give her any marks. Like, this is your property. Move as you would on your property. And she did, and they had the camera follow her. Like, she had lines, you know, but most of it was just her. Her only rule was don't speak English and tell us as much as you know.
Well, and that was something I really loved, is he has that moment where he says that his grandmother refuses to learn English. And that ties into, like, with it being so hard to find someone who knows the traditional weaving, is it's those people who, it's the issue of, like, assimilation, where you have these lost arts because, like, no, you're trying to pass it down, it's trying to be passed down, but, like, as your kids try to assimilate more, they don't really care as much, like...
Yeah. So that's the thing. This is like an anthropological thing.
Yeah.
I think is really interesting, and I wrote a lot of papers on when I was in college. But it takes 3 generations to assimilate.
Okay.
You have the people that come over from the homeland, then you have the people who the next generation is trying to fight against who they are, who their heritage is, and then the 3rd generation traditionally will be fully assimilated.
Okay.
And I think something that's interesting that we're seeing now is 3rd generation tends to, in my experience of people I talk to, tend to want to cling on to their heritage past, because now it's like kind of cool to have a heritage, where that wasn't the case a long time ago. So like I know in my family we try to be more Armenian as the 3rd generation, and we're trying to hold on to that. But like my grandmother refuses to speak Armenian. She knows it, but she was sent to school not knowing a single word of English and was so embarrassed. I've only ever heard her speak Armenian to the Derhars, like the priests, and to correct my grandfather. Those are the only times I've ever heard her speak Armenian. Like, my brother came back from Armenia speaking Armenian, and she would answer him in English. She would not speak it. So it's interesting to see a character that was the reverse of that, of like, I will hold on to this culture.
Yeah.
And I really liked seeing that. I thought that was cool.
There's the comment, like, he makes a comment that makes me, like, it made me really emo, where he's talking about how she refuses to learn English, but she only speaks to him in Navajo, and he has the comment where he's like, I feel like she expects that one of these days I'll respond in perfect Navajo. And I was like, and then at the end where he learns the word for grandmother, and he shouts it to her, and it's just so, like, it's such a beautiful little moment.
It is.
I love it so much.
I'm having such a moment in my life currently where am enjoying consuming media that feels like I am not the target audience.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why. I like it because it's different lenses, and I feel like I'm learning something from lenses that I don't normally look at or don't seek out.
Yeah.
So I'm really enjoying, like, I really enjoyed this movie. I'm not Navajo, but I loved this lens and seeing life through this lens.
Yeah.
I feel like I know some stuff about Navajo. I lived in New Mexico for a hot second. I've done a lot of research on Navajo people and, like, the tribes out there, but it's not the same as, like, living it.
Yeah.
But, like, one of my favorite things, it's a joke in New Mexico that everybody, like, points with their lips, especially if they're, like, native. Mm-hmm. And she, Frybread, like, points with her lips in the movie.
Oh, funny.
She'll be, like, over there and, like, puckers her lips to, like, a direction.
Oh.
I laughed so hard when that happened. I was like, oh my god, yeah! Like, that was something that came back to me.
Yeah.
I really liked that.
See, I have, like, minimal experience with Native American culture. My dad is one of those white dudes who's like, yeah, we have Lakota blood in us, when he's like maybe 0.5% Lakota.
Yeah.
But it's that, and so like I've been to a powwow. I was like 4 years old. I have a lot more like kind of rancher experience. I say this as a fucking city slicker, but my aunt and uncle run a bison ranch, and like I grew up in North Denver where no one else has heard this, but like it was the Cheds, and so it's like the Mexican kids whose parents like are ranchers and are farmers and stuff. So like I grew up in North Denver. I went to school in North Denver, like with the kind of rancher vibe, but it was like the Hispanic bent to it.
Gotcha. So I am enrolled as a Native member, which is like, it's really interesting, and it's something that the more you think about, the more you're like, oh, this is kind of fucked. So this is the family oral history. Here you go, you get it. My dad's grandmother or great-grandmother was in one of those boarding schools, like Native American boarding schools.
Yeah.
And then her future husband broke her out, and they got married, and they lived in Oklahoma.
That sounds like such a fun, like, romance story, but also fucked up.
I don't know how much of it is, like, legit. The Combses are really good at telling, like, a good story.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes I'm like, that's a great story. I don't know how much of that is true. Like, my dad's 3 brothers cannot agree how how their grandfather died, but he died dramatically no matter who you talk to.
Amazing.
Where you're like, okay, these are all really dramatic deaths. He didn't, like, die in his... Like, everyone's like, he was hit by a truck, or he fell into an elevator. Like, everyone has... Like, the Combses are unreliable narrators.
Well, and that's something I love about families, going back to, like, getting different versions of stories from your families, is you have, like, family mythology.
Yeah.
Like, there's one where my dad tells this story. His grandfather... He has a pin for it. He was in World War II... in, like, a special ski division.
Oh, yeah.
And so, like, we have weird, like, war stories from that. And I'm like, the part of this, I believe, is that he was good at skiing and went to Italy. I don't believe any of these other things. I don't know about the rest of that.
Right. So, but because my grandmother was enrolled in the tribes, well, she was living on the reservation. She was born on the reservation. I don't know what her percentage was.
Yeah. So
then my dad was able to be enrolled. I'm able to be enrolled. So we're Creek Muskogee. I feel like I have to make the disclaimer because, like, I have used their scholarships. Mm-hmm. So, like, I have benefited from the tribe. But because it's based off of blood amount, my children will not qualify.
Interesting.
I am the last to be like, enrolled.
Yeah.
Which, the more you think about it, the more you're like, oh, that feels kind of like erasure.
Yeah.
Of, like, it's the slow burn way of getting rid of people. Because also, like, the way to be considered a tribe, a federally recognized tribe, you have to have a certain number of people. There's a limit count to qualify. And if you make it so, like, oh, you don't have enough blood in you, people will eventually lose that tribal. Yeah. So, like, there's tons of tribes in California that are not recognized because they don't have the tribal count.
I'm sorry, the devil in the back of my brain just provided me with the phrase of trickle-down assimilation.
I mean, that is it. That is it. It's so, like, messed up. It's so messed up. Yeah. And it's so interesting. It's just one of those things where you're like, did they mean it to be this diabolical?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I mean, they're trying to get their land, so yeah. But it's, I don't know. That's something that I've always thought about.
Yeah.
Like, the older I get, I'm always just like, what? Anyway, we can go back to the movie. So that's my disclaimer. And I have uncles that live on the reservation, that live out on the Muskogee reservation.
I guess my other...
Where Reservation Dogs is supposed to take place.
Oh, see, I haven't watched that one yet. My mom has watched it. I will say, like, my other baby connection is for, like, 2.5 years when she was growing up. My mom lived in Riverton in Wyoming, and she lived, like, where the paved road met the dirt road that went to the res. Oh. So she, like, kind of... She was telling me that a lot of, like, some of this stuff kind of, like, she had an adjacent knowledge to it. Because the res car, that's the big thing. Like, that's the thing that we, like, I have known people who have the res car. My mom, like, her friends drove the res car. It doesn't have a windshield. It doesn't work like that, but it's the car that you have. And you're going to make that fucking thing go as long as it's going to go until it literally falls apart. And even then, get some duct tape, get some zip ties.
You've got to keep this thing running.
But yeah, I loved that bit in the movie where they're in the car and they drive to get the sheep. And the kids are just laughing so hard. They're having so much fun. At one point, Dawn has her feet up on the dashboard and she's like, they've got the music going.
She's pretending to smoke a cigarette.
Yeah, she's like, you have to drive right. One hand on the steering wheel, one hand smoking a cigarette. She, like, pulls the cigarette from the, like, the
visor.
The visor. She's like, you're terrible at smoking.
I loved that scene, and then I love how they zoom out and you see the cars going maybe 10 miles per hour.
Not even, yeah. I like this movie because it has little tiny, like, little things that stood out to me with, like, tokens and, like, gestures, and that's where you see, like, the relationships between these characters evolve. Like, the first night that Dawn comes for dinner, she gives Benny the fucked up fork.
Yeah.
And then at the very end, their last dinner that they have, she gives him the nice fork, and you see him, like, look at it, and he smiles.
And he really appreciates it.
And then with Marvin, he, like, they butt heads, whatever, and then Benny, like, fixes the fence, and then they use the water from washing their hair to wash the car for him. And so you get these, like, very small gestures that have big meaning. And I think, now that I know that the filmmaker does documentaries mostly, I think that is where that comes from, is, like, when you're doing documentary, you don't have, like, this narrative where you can do, like, you don't do, like, character arcs. It's all about observation and, like, small details and, like, showing the meaning and understanding the meaning behind small gestures. And so that's, I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Also with the silverware, I did love during that fight that Benny fucking shanked Marvin with a spoon. He, like, picks the spoon up and fucking shanks him with it.
Oh my god. Marvin is, like, he really kind of got the shit under the stick a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a bummer as, like, a character. So, like, you get why he's mean.
Yeah.
Like, you get it.
Yeah, well, and the auntie, I cannot remember her name. The
Lucy?
lesbian auntie.
Lucy,
yeah. Well, she talks about, because Benny is talking to her about it, and he's like, he wants me to be a man, but I don't know what that means. And she's like, well, maybe he's figuring it out, too. Like, she makes a point to say that Marvin's, like, the last of the family who herds sheep. And so it's that kind of butting up against, like, the idealized, like, masculinity with keeping up the family legacy, and, like, he's the last like, all the rest of the family has moved away, and he's kind of, like, stuck there.
Yeah, taking care of the grandma and taking care of the land. And
also just, like, the rodeo scene, like, the bull riding, because that was I love bull riding. I think it's one of the coolest sports.
It makes me so nervous. It makes me so nervous.
My dad's bass player used to be a rodeo clown.
Oh my god, I love that.
And, like, my mom grew up going to the rodeo because she grew up in Wyoming, and then, like, with my family we do a lot of rodeo stuff, and, like, bull riding is so hard, and it's also, like, such a masculine sport, and I feel like it's kind of you see Marvin, because his brother is like a champ. They mention
Yeah.
that his brother is the champ, so he's trying to like prove himself to be as good as his brother, but also like he just
It's like
isn't
his only outlet,
It's his
too.
only outlet, and so like, and he falls fucking hard.
He was staying on for so long that like there was hope because he had stayed on longer than the previous people.
Yeah.
And then when he fell and he didn't get up, I was like, oh, fuck.
Because I counted it, I think he made it up to 6 seconds, which is like, in bull riding you get 8.
Yeah.
Like, an 8-second ride is usually your best thing. And like, yeah, he held on, but you can even see when he's getting like on the bull, he's nervous.
Yeah.
He was wearing a hat, not a helmet, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's the thing. That's the thing that gets me too. Is like there's so way like in bull riding you can choose to wear a helmet or a hat, and it's like it's a machismo thing a lot of the time where they're like, I'm a cowboy, I don't need no goddamn helmet, and I'm like, you do though, because brain damage is bad.
It's a real thing that can happen to you.
I've watched in championships, like I've seen dudes get fucking stabbed by the horns and like just get horribly concussed at best.
What I thought was interesting too is like he comes back from the hospital and nobody helps him get his wheelchair.
He has to get his own wheel. They all go inside.
Yeah.
It's so funny to me. I love those.
That couple.
That couple is so funny to me, where they're very much like, I've met that couple.
Yeah.
You have that aunt and uncle where like they don't like being in the house because like they have nicer clothes and they have like a nice, like a van.
She has a perm.
Yeah, oh my god, that fucking 90s power perm was so... She got out of the car and I screamed. I was like, the perm! Which is another thing too, because he makes a point to talk about how important hair is in their culture. And like, I found that really interesting because getting a perm fucks your shit up.
Yeah.
It fucks your hair up so bad. And like, I don't know, they're nice clothes and they sit so awkwardly on the couch in the trailer because, like, I don't know, you get the vibe of they feel like they made it off the res, and so it's a pain in the ass to have to come back, and they feel weird about coming back.
And they're so loud about coming back.
Loud.
They talk so much faster than any other character, and they're louder. They, like, will plow over any other character that's talking to get their point across.
But they still hold it to those traditions, like the baby laugh ceremony.
I loved that.
It's so good.
I didn't know that was a thing.
I didn't
I absolutely love that's a thing, because I was there when my niece gave her first laugh, and her parents started crying.
Aww.
I was like, oh, this is a really big deal.
Yeah.
And I like that it was, like, a ceremony.
Did you ask, like, I immediately asked my mom, I was like, who made me laugh the first time? And
did she know?
She did, but it's kind of for a sad reason. Like, it was a very interesting answer because she said, well, I was the one who was around you and your sister the most, so it was me. I found that to be really telling about, like, family dynamics, too, because, like, the person who makes the baby laugh is Benny, and they're all so surprised. And, like, even Dawn points it out where she's like, has your baby never laughed before? Right. And they look kind of offended, and I couldn't tell if they were offended because Dawn was being a shit, or if the person that made their baby laugh was this fucking city kid who's staying for the summer, you know?
Right.
But it also tied into, like, the importance of food, because they were like, well, now you have to cook for this ceremony.
I do love her who's like, what?
And they have the ceremony with the salt, and the grandmother talks about the salt, where she's like, this isn't table salt from the store, this is, like, from Mother Earth, this is important to us. And they do, like, they go around, and the baby's the one giving the salt. He, like, picks up the salt and puts it in the baby's hand, and the baby, like, gives it
I love it so much.
But yeah, and, like, also with the calling Dawn Frybread face. Yeah. It's just, like, food is so ingrained in the culture, and, like, I do love, she's like, yeah, it's round and greasy. Do you think I like being called Frybread face? But everyone calls her, even Benny's mom, when she comes back.
Calls her Fry.
Yeah, she calls her Fry, and he's like, her name is Dawn.
I love that he starts standing up for her.
So good. Well, they start standing up for each other. Like, yeah. Because Dawn starts being a shithead even more to Marvin when he's being mean. And, like, that scene where they get in the kind of fight, and Dawn is like acting like she's gonna run away, and she has the Playboy in her bag, where she's like, he won't mess with us if like he'll get in trouble if Grandma finds out that he, that he has this. Yeah. And it's the Madonna Playboy too, which I thought was
I like
so
that you
funny.
know that.
Well, it was the cover. He pulled it out.
Fair.
It was.
I didn't look that closely at it. I was like, oh, it's a Playboy.
Yeah, it was Madonna in her like classic Madonna outfit with the lace and the dress.
Oh, very cool.
But
I'm oblivious.
Get into your research, because I have like questions and I have like other stuff that I want to talk about. But tell me.
Well, what are your questions?
Where was this? So my main one was this based on a book, but I think that's. You said that it was he's a documentarian, and so that answered the question for me, because the way he has the narration and the way that the story is structured, kind of felt like a book. But I was like, but now I'm like, okay, no, actually, that's very documentary vibes.
Well, it's very much based off of this guy's life.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean it's
saw a
based
little bit
on
of the research.
Yeah,
that's true. It still could have been based on the book, a book, but
making something based on your life and something based on a book has two different vibes, I feel like.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I can usually tell, but...
Well, so, like, that footage, the, like, old footage, that's from Billy Luther.
Okay, yeah, that's my
his
next
family.
Question. That was my next question.
Yeah, so that's his family. So what he did...
Documentarians love archive footage.
Well, so it's the same editor, too, as from his documentaries.
Okay, yeah.
So they're like, I guess, they're not really like a team, but they're kind of a team.
They work together
They work together often. So they kind of knew what they needed. Mm-hmm. And Billy opened up he got his parents' permission, and he let the art department into his parents' attic.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of those things that you see on the wall, the like action figures, a lot of like other knickknacks and stuff, the footage, like all of that is from his house.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, he said a lot of those pictures were like his.
I bet that saved on the budget too.
Probably. It was a pretty small budget film it was like I guess a medium-ish budget, but it did run into like a lot of issues.
Oh.
Well, it was filmed in the summer of 2021. Okay. So it was greenlit and then COVID and then filmed in 2021. One of the producers was talking about like how this was kind of challenging for them. He said he read the script and he's like, I liked it, but logistically it was kind of a nightmare because it's in a rural setting. Yeah. The two main characters are kids and there's a bunch of animals in it. Yeah. He's like, it's hard. And it's filmed...
Reba the dog.
Oh, the dog. It was so sad.
Anyway.
But it was filmed in New Mexico, outside of Santa Fe, during monsoon season. Oh. Have you...
No.
So, it's just... when I was in New Mexico, I was there during monsoon season, and I'd have friends try and come out and visit me, and they're like, what should I pack? And I'm like, literally everything. Because, like, monsoons, it'll be really sunny, and all of a sudden it's just pouring rain for 3 hours.
Oh, wow.
It's crazy. And then all of a sudden it's fine again. But, like, it burns off so quick. Like, there's a moment where it's humid, and then it goes back to being a dry heat. It's really weird, but it can really halt filming. Yeah. Because you can't film when it's just, like, pouring rain. But it makes for beautiful clouds.
Yeah, it was gorgeous.
Yeah, so this was filmed... I think they say it was filmed outside of Santa Fe, and some people say it was filmed on Navajo land. I don't really know. They don't give an exact location, which is fine. Yeah. But they built that set. That whole thing is built from the ground up.
Really?
Yeah, so one of the actors says... I can't remember who said it. I listened to some interview. They saw it without... Oh, no, it was the director. Sorry, it was Billy. He saw the land, and then the art department was all Dene, like all Navajo, and they just, like, went ham, essentially. Nice. They, like, went and he told them, he's like, I just want it to feel like your grandma's house. And they built that. Wow. They built all that from scratch, like, from the sheep pen to the hogan to the, like, little house thing, like, the big house. Like, that was built in, like, 2-3 days.
Oh, wow.
Like, really, really fast. Which was really incredible.
And it feels so authentic too, though, because like I'm a big person. I pay a lot of attention to set dressing, and like it looks like people. It looks like a real house because like there's dishes in the sink, there's clutter around the house, like everything's super old.
Yeah,
But
you get that feeling like so pretty much everyone who worked on the set, I think everyone who worked on the film was Native American or as close as possible, and a large majority of that was people who were Navajo. So they really tried to kind of keep it Navajo. It's a Navajo story. They kept Navajo people in the production of it, which is very cool. And I think you see that in the art department, particularly where you have Navajo artists making a Navajo set on and around historic Navajo land.
Yeah.
And it really gives the vibe. It felt like a home. It felt like it was the grandmother's home.
Yeah.
Or you're like, okay, this is her space. And the way that the camera always follows the grandmother, she does feel like she is the matriarch. She controls the space so much more than the rest of any of the characters. So I liked that a lot.
I liked that a lot. I really liked the kid actors. I did have a question, because the kid who plays Billy has Benny has like scars on his mouth.
Yeah.
Is that just like something that kid has?
I have no idea. I could not find anything on that kid.
Honestly though, good. I like the child actors, we don't need to know everything about their lives.
Yeah, so like the person who plays Dawn, Charlie, she is a junior in high school. She has gone to some of the stuff. It kind of seems like she's picking what interviews she wants to do.
That's fair.
And she has to get them approved by her mom before going on them.
Good.
Yeah, so
we watched the fucking Nickelodeon documentary.
Yeah.
Kid actors need to be protected. They need more regulation. It needs
Yeah. So she's just, it's really like Charlie, the actress, she feels very young. She's a junior in high school. They filmed this when she was 13.
Oh, wow.
She didn't tell anybody in our high school that she did it, which I think is kind of fun.
Yeah.
And she's like, they're figuring it out now that it's all on Netflix. Because it was during COVID, she got into acting during COVID and did virtual plays.
Oh, wow.
She did 2 virtual plays and was like, oh, I like doing this. And her mom's like, oh, there's a casting call for this movie. Do you want to try?
Ooh.
And she tried, and the producer, or the talent, whoever,
The casting director,
thank you, saw the tape and was like, oh, this is the person.
That's awesome.
Yeah, she still had to do like 2 more rounds, but she pretty much had it.
Yeah. That's really cool.
Which is really cool.
Because, yeah, she's so good. Like, I really loved her. I love that kind of character where, like, I don't know, something about her, like, I know this kid where, like, she shows up with her stuff in a fucking trash bag. Her dad's in jail. Her mom just dumps her at her grandma's for the summer. But she, like, as soon as there's a kid who's, like, younger than her, she's like, oh, I'm in charge. I have things to do.
Yes.
Like, I just really love, and then, like, they get on equal footing. I mentioned it earlier, but yeah, no, I love the moment where it turns into, we've got things to do. Like, I really love, she was so good at, like, kind of showing that transition and, like, that sort of childish response to trauma.
Yeah.
I don't know, I just really love her.
I really liked her. I think she did a really good job. The director really liked working with her. He said she was amazing. But it was apparently really hard because of monsoon season and because of COVID. Like, there were still COVID restrictions happening on that set.
Yeah.
That people had to only be there it was like really quick takes. So a lot of that lighting in the Hogan with where they weave and stuff,
Yeah.
that's mostly natural lighting. So they did those shots like at dawn, like when the sun was rising.
Yeah.
And he's like, you have like 10 minutes to get those shots.
Good luck.
Yeah, and same with like a lot of those hair washing scenes.
Yeah.
He was like, he said the hair washing scenes were done right before monsoon was coming in, so they had to do them like back to back super fast and then get out of there.
Oh, wow. Crazy.
I think he's the perfect director for it because he's already filmed in that area before as a documentarian. So like when asked what he thought his strength was coming from a documentary background, he's like, I think I know how to be flexible. And he's like, that was really important with the schedule because of the weather. And like, they're in such a rural place. They have to be able to adapt. It's not like you can just like, the landscape is a character in it, essentially, which is fun.
So this is another question I had. Is this filmmaker gay?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah. He, like, hinted at it in an interview, like it was known that he was out, but I didn't see anything that's like known gay filmmaker.
Yeah.
But he talks about being effeminate on the res.
Well, and that was something that I really liked is sort of the gender stuff that happens. Like they find the boombox with the tape and they're dancing, and this is me, and this is like me bringing like my own kind of like viewing history and like my own like understanding. But like there's a bit where Lucy is giving Dawn the makeover and Benny starts like putting on the lipstick and stuff, and I would like in my heart I got so nervous because I was like, he's gonna get in trouble.
Yeah.
He's good, like, oh
but
no.
Lucy was such a safe space for those kids.
Well, and I feel like it can also be attributed to the filmmaker, though, because, like, there are choices that could happen there where, like, for dramatic effect, a different filmmaker would have had, like, Marvin come in and, like, do a whole speech about, like, you're not a girl, whatever. He does call Benny a faggot at one point during that big, but I feel like that's also kind of in that specific scene, that's when they're all like screaming at each other and just, it's very much to hurt.
Yeah.
Because then like there's no, I don't want to say consequences, but there's no consequences for Benny having his little gender moments. Like he puts on the lipstick, he acts out soap operas with his fucking G.I. Joes where he's like, I'm pregnant again. It's not yours. Oh, good. I didn't want to have a child. Like, playing with his, like, doing the soap operas, and then, like, that dance sequence where him and Dawn are wearing the dresses and, like, the little headband. And then he has that headscarf for the rest of the movie, which I really loved.
I loved the, are you a boy or a girl? And he's like, I'm Benny.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, so sweet.
Queen.
Yeah. And, like, the whole thing, him having long hair and wearing a woman's hat. Mm-hmm. I feel
and they specify it all the time too. Like it's his mom's hat, and like to me, I don't know. I've seen dudes wearing that exact same hat, but like when he leaves it on the bus driver even is like, a woman's hat was left on the bus.
Yeah, I did like the little gender moments. A moment that kind of like stuck out to me was when Marvin, when he is fixing the fence and he's telling Benny like, well, you have to fix the fence too, and Benny picks up a hammer and like tries to start helping and is like confused, and then Marvin walks away, and he's just like left there, and I was like, that feels like how being a man is often taught to men, where it's like, I don't know, build this fence with no instructions, and then they like leave.
Well, and then he's like later he's building he's holding the hammer with two hands. It's like duk, 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 duk.
I like the fence thing, because he ends up learning how to build the fence. Yeah.
And his mom even comments on it at the end. His mom is like, good job on the fence, you guys.
So this is, I actually looked it up, so I didn't know about this, but Charlie talked about it in an interview where she thought that this movie incorporated the 4 R's. Mm-hmm. So I hadn't heard the 4 R's before in this context. And apparently it's like a indigenous teaching. So she described it as being respect, responsibility, reciprocity, and relationships.
Okay.
And she says, like, Benny has that, like, each character has that moment of learning those things. Yeah. And that those R's are, like, throughout the film. And once all 4 are fulfilled is when the movie ends.
Oh, I like that a lot.
And I was like, that's really cool. Yeah.
I enjoy that.
Yeah, like, she described the reciprocity as like an exchanging of the gifts of like they both had things for the other. Yeah. I was like, oh, that's really lovely. And then like the relationship was like Benny and Marvin. Sorry, the actor's name is Martin.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So Marvin, like them kind of having their relationship moment.
Over the dog.
And then again, that like scene respect with the irresponsibility with the sheep. Yeah. And then respect with the grandma.
Again, that scene with the dog, too, was, like, you're getting the family history. This is, like, the thing that stood out the most to me in the movie, clearly, because I have the most to say about it. But, like, he's giving this speech about Reba, the dog, and he's like, everyone says that my brother found her, but I was the one who found. And, like, it's that thing where he's like, the stories around the dog changed, where they all just thought, like, his brother found the dog, and, like, they named it for whatever, but he's like, I found the puppy, I cleaned her up, I was listening to Reba McEntire a lot, and so I named the dog that.
Well, it's also that thing of, like, letting your brother be the hero. Mm-hmm. He's already the hero, like, why fight that narrative? Like, sure. I also really like that narrative of, like, the family telling each other their stories and finding out what's true and what's not. Mm-hmm. Like I feel like the real stuff comes out way later in the movie.
Yeah.
But that shot of like Frybread with like the family photos.
Yeah.
Oof, that one got me. I was like, oh, it's so beautiful. And it felt really poignant and weighty.
Yeah.
Like really weighty.
Yeah.
Yeah. It says the woman who has a picture of her grandparents on the wall. First thing you see.
I have pictures of my cats on my wall.
Yeah.
Something else I wanted to talk about for my talking point is it kind of ties in with the family stuff and all of that, where they keep repeating it. They say it to Benny all the time, and then they say it to, like, Marvin. But it's that, like, well, if you hate it so much, just leave. And it's that thing where it's like, I can't, though. And that's one of the things that gets me so much is, like, people will be like, well, if you hate it so much, why do you leave? Why don't you just leave? Or, like, well, if you feel this way, like, why don't you just not? And it's like, there's no understanding of, like, the internal struggles, the, like, monetary, like, any of that. And so, like, that's what makes Marvin an interesting character is, like, he's literally stuck. He can't leave because he's the one who's taking care of the sheep. He's the one who's taking care of the land. He's the one who's taking care of the grandmother. He hates it, but he can't just leave.
Yeah. And even if you, like, you see Fry, like, start walking, because she's like, well, I'll just leave. Mm-hmm. To where?
Yeah.
Like, they're so far away from anything.
Well, and even if she did go somewhere, where is she gonna go?
Right.
Like Benny's thing where he's like, I just need $39 and a ride to the bus stop. Like,
okay, I did love that Fry's like, well, if you tell the police you're going home, they'll drive you anywhere.
Yeah. That's what my auntie said if I had an emergency.
Yeah. Oh, also, like, a fun thing that the writer did, because, like, everything was pretty crunched for time due to, like, COVID and stuff, but he still had Charlie and the person who played Lucy, whose name I can't remember right now, he had them come together a week in advance to play board games and get to know each other.
Cute.
And, like, now Charlie actually calls that actress, like, her true auntie,
Aww.
and it's really, really sweet. And also, like, the person who plays Lucy and the person who plays Marvin are married in real life.
Oh, I love that.
So the person who plays Marvin, his real name is Martin, and he knows Billy from something else, I guess.
Okay.
Because Billy had sent the script and was like, I was hoping you would play this character. And the person who plays Lucy, she was bored in the house during COVID and read the script, and she said she was crying when Reba got hit by a car, and she was like, I need to be a part of this.
Aww.
And so she got to be involved as
That's
well.
so good.
But the guy who plays Marvin, their names are so close.
No, it's okay.
He is the only one who's not Navajo in that acting cast.
Oh.
He is native to... They said he's indigenous Alaskan. They didn't say
Okay.
anything else. But, yeah. And his wife's like, I don't know what it is about him, but Navajos love this guy. In an interview. I thought that was really funny.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I really liked this movie overall. There was, like, so much to chew on. Like,
Yeah.
It just felt really thoughtful and really, like, poignant. And it was also, like, I like movies like this where they're quiet. They're not gonna come out and, like, make a big even, like, the fight that they have isn't some huge, like, like, it's a fight, but it's over quick, because, like, when you have those screaming matches with your family, it's, like, maybe 10 minutes max, and then you all leave and you're angry for a bit, and then you, like, either move on or apologize and move on. Like,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, it was a very quiet movie, which I really liked. Sometimes it's one where you have to kind of be in the right mood for it, but
Yeah.
I don't know. Quiet is the word that I keep thinking of.
Something that I really liked about the movie is that the land really does feel like a character in it. Like, the landscape feels like its own character. And I feel like, as somebody who's, like, a sucker for where stuff is filmed, I think where things are filmed is important. I know it's not always realistic, but, like, where you are informs a lot of your decision making. Mm-hmm. And being able to be like, this is the Navajo land, it really felt like there was some power in that, with the family and with everyone constantly being drawn to this location.
Yeah.
With the grandmother. Like, it all felt really important. And I liked that. Nothing about this film felt like there was a throwaway moment. It all felt really intentional. and that was nice.
Yeah.
So they filmed this the summer of 2021. It then comes out last year. So they intentionally took 2 years to edit this and score it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so he really wanted to take his time. Was a large part of it.
Well, and it comes through. It does feel very intentional. I mean, everything about it feels like it is placed in exactly, like, where it needs to be.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. The filmmaker is, like, so proud of this movie.
He should be.
Like, obviously. And he has worked on other Indigenous projects. Mm-hmm. So something that kind of ended up happening with this movie as well is it came out during the writer's strikes. Or during the actor and writer strikes. So promoting it was really hard.
Yeah.
Because actors couldn't promote it. The writer couldn't promote it for a while. Like, it was a struggle.
Yeah.
I feel kind of bad for them, like, their string of luck that they had. But he talked about, like, the thing that was nice about the writer's strike is that there was one area where it was like, okay, this is where... Because different writing groups were meeting up to strike. There was a Native writers group that met up to strike together. And he was like, it was so nice to, like, finally meet all those people whose names you've seen on projects and you've always wanted to meet. But you work in different studios.
Is he based in LA?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah.
But he talks about how, like, as a kid, he felt like he didn't have any Native voices to reach for. Like, he knew he wanted to be in movies and he wanted to be in he wanted to write for movies and direct and everything like that. But there weren't Native stories really told by Natives when he was growing up. And wants to solve that.
Yeah. That's fantastic.
Which is so cool. And something he talked about is, like, he believes that there are a lot of Native stories being told. Especially, like, in Hollywood, there are these stories, there are these movies being made.
Yeah.
He's like, people are happily making these films. They're not distributing them, though. And that's where the failure is happening. Is what he says. Yeah. He thinks the failure comes at distribution because it's not going to major audiences, but he's hoping that the success from, like, Res Dogs and other Native-backed stories or Native-centered stories is going to help more voices be heard.
It's already like such a shit show with distribution right now anyway. I mean, that thing with, like, HBO being able to just, like, scrap entire and completed shit for tax write-offs and, like, the streaming nightmare. So it's already hard for, like, big budget white people movies to get out there. So, like, I'm sure it's a billion times harder for stuff like this.
Yeah. Where, I don't know, it feels like an important story, too.
Well, and it's nice to have, like, authentic, like... You need to have these stories written by the people who are actually in the stories, like, and they can be done so well. There's the new Predator movie that came out last year or the year before, Prey, featured an Indigenous, like, cast, and it was like a prequel.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And, like, they had a dual release where they had the English release, but then they had like filmed the movie twice almost because they had it in, like, their native language, and then they had it in English, and, like, did the dual release, and it was, like, super cool.
Okay, so this is, like, a weird connection, and I may have misunderstood it, but, like, I was listening to an interview of Billy, the person who was interviewing him, who is also Navajo, was talking about how he shows his kids Finding Nemo, but in Navajo.
Oh, nice.
And apparently the person who voices Dory in Navajo was the art director on this movie. And, like, that's a fun little connection.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it's interesting, too, because, like, I would have to look it up. I don't know what it is. But there's, like, a thing with cultures like this where, like, you have the forced assimilation. You have, like, the boarding schools and stuff where your entire languages just disappear. And, like, it's a thing in Ireland where being able to learn, like, Gaelic and, like, traditional Irish language... There are some places that will, like, you can get scholarships if you, like, take classes. They are holding on to their, like, native language by their fucking teeth. Yeah. And it's, like, it's so crazy to me, and, like, that's why it's so important to have stuff like this, where, like, with the grandmother, she refuses to speak English. And so you get that, like, you're holding on to the language with your bare fucking hands.
Yeah, and I think, like, you kind of also see that with Billy's approach to this, where he talks about how he just wants this film to exist. And that was his main goal when writing it and producing it. He's like, yes, I would love it for people to see it. He's like, but I I want this to exist.
Yeah.
To outlive me for this to be in the world.
Legacy!
Yeah, and I was like, that's really cool. And a lot of the Native people who interviewed or who I heard, like, talk about the movie talked about how this truly felt like, you know, going home to the res.
Yeah.
And when you return to the res, how, like, your grandmother would make you mutton. And, like, how that's, like, really... It felt really genuine, and they really appreciated it.
I really loved this movie.
Yeah. Oh, I guess I have one more thing.
Okay, yeah.
It was scheduled to be filmed in about 23 days. They were able to manage to film it in about 28 days.
Dang.
So, again, pretty fast for a rural area. And the other thing about it being filmed, so if you look at the credits, it has, like, a ton of people for one position. Mm-hmm. And it's because it was, like, right when filming was opened back up after COVID. People would show up on set and then get a call being like, you need to be on this set now. And so people were just being shuffled around, and they just needed people on set. It was like hitting a point where they're like, we just need people here. If you have the bare minimum experience, like, come now. So that's how they ended up getting a lot of more Navajo people on set, is they were just like, we're near Navajo land. Like, there are Navajo people here who know how to do this stuff, even if they don't have a ton of experience.
Yeah.
He said, like, people were so much more passionate about the project. Like, the local people were way more passionate about the project.
Oh, I bet.
And they're like, yeah, sure, we had some technical difficulties. They're like, but these people genuinely cared about it and stayed for the whole filming.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's kind of
fantastic.
cool.
I love that.
So Billy, like, figured out, he said the moment where he's like, oh, I'm making something big. Where he's like, he felt really, like, he had succeeded in telling a Native voice was the baby laugh scene where they're all, he calls it, like, the crosstalk scene, where they're all sitting in the house and they're all talking over each other and, like, kind of joking and slighting and whatever. He said he, like, looked at the little monitor and was like, oh my god, look at these, like, 8 Native people that are telling a Native story, a modern Native story. He's like, oh, I did it. He's like, I need a moment. And, like, that was, like, when it clicked for him that he was doing something impressive.
That's so cool.
Isn't it cool? Also, apparently a lot of the people, after the grandma's set was built, came out and cried because it reminded them of their grandma's house. It's like, oh, that's so cute.
I love that.
It also makes it, like, it really feels authentic.
Yeah. Final thoughts, final quotes.
I don't think I have any quotes.
Are you gonna cry again?
No, I'm just on my period. Okay. Everything makes me cry right now. I don't think I wrote down any quotes, actually.
I really loved...
I do love the, I'm just Benny.
Yeah. I've got things to do. The bit where they're asking Lucy for advice and she's like, be somebody or be somebody's fool. And he's like, Mr. T said that.
I loved Aunt Lucy so much.
She was so good.
She knew what the family said about her and she didn't care and she was confident in who she was.
Yeah.
And I just really appreciated that about her.
My favorite thing is walk in beauty. Like, that was her advice that she gave to Dawn, was like, walk in beauty. And I was like, yes. A bunch of, like, little stuff that just I really enjoyed too that just stuck out is, like, first of all, Starman being the only fucking tape they have, like, knocked me out because that was literally one of the, like, 15 tapes that we had at my dad's house when we lived on the reservoir. Because my dad worked for the Parks Department and we were on that reservoir. We didn't have cable. We just had whatever DVDs my uncle had burned for us and then, like, my dad's VHS collection. And so, yeah, Starman was one of them. And I like, them sitting on the floor, like, mouthing the words along with the movie, because, like, that's all they have.
Yeah.
It's not even a very good movie.
I love the grandmother being like, why is that white woman in the middle of a crater?
They're like, quiet. No, and then her doll that her mom, like, made for her, so she carries it around, and the doll's name is Jeff Bridges.
Yes.
And she gives it to Benny at the end. She, like, gives him his fanny pack, and he unzips it, and he's got, like, Jeff Bridges' head in his fanny pack, and he puts it up on the dashboard. And it was one of those things, I really loved it, because the mom, like, she has no idea what the fuck that is, but it has such significance to him, and that's, like, such a kid at the end of summer thing, is, like, it has this huge meaning to him, but, like, how do you explain that to anyone? It's like, it's my cousin's doll that her mom made for her. Its name is Jeff Bridges. Like, it has the drawn-on facial hair.
I did really like that doll, that the mom tried to make a doll that wasn't white, and she could only get half of it to not be white.
Little details like that, like, when you are in a place where, like, it's a million miles to anywhere else. You have, like, the same movies. You, like, have the same tapes. Like, you make your own fun. And that's the moment where he finds the book. Because, like, he gets to his grandmother's house and his Walkman fucking dies.
Yeah.
Like, immediately. And it's like, well, you're not going to be able to go to 7-Eleven for batteries. Like, you're fucked.
Yep.
And so when he finds the boombox, it's like such a joyful moment. He holds it over his head and he's like, duh!
I love that they just spend, you can tell it's like probably the next full day or two
the
just
entire
dancing.
day, yeah. With the skirts and, like, I just loved it so much.
It was so lovely.
But yeah.
I overall really liked this movie. I thought, again, like, everything in it felt really intentional. Mm-hmm. It felt really genuine, and it's a story that I haven't seen before.
Yeah.
And knowing that people from this community really enjoyed this film helped me enjoy it more.
Well, it's so important to watch stuff that's, like you were saying, it's so important to watch stuff that's outside your comfort zone and, like, finding stuff that you would never, like, intentionally seek out. Like, I miss, when I was in college, I would intentionally take, like, the most random fucking classes, like, especially over the summer. I took, like, Middle Eastern film, I took foreign film classes, because it would be like, oh, I've never seen any of this before, but, like, it gave me, like, new favorite movies. Like, for my Middle Eastern film class, there was, like, this one movie that I fucking loved so much, and it's something that I never would have been able to find on my own.
Yeah. I mean, I love watching stuff that's, like, not meant for me. I know that sounds, like, weird, but
no, it's good.
Stuff that's, like, not built for my lens, I really enjoy.
You have to put those wrinkles in your brain. You can't just watch only fucking Marvel movies and be a fucking person. I'm sorry. This is my again, Caitlin's old man yells at cloud. Watch movies that make you uncomfortable. Read books that make you uncomfortable. Like, it is so informative to find stuff that makes you feel a type of way.
I will say, like...
I'm sorry, I'm giving you crazy eyes.
A little bit, yeah.
It's how I feel.
This is, like, a really crazy, weird connection to this movie, but I saw that this movie had, like, production assistant, like, at the end where it says, like, what studios helped make it.
Oh, yeah.
One of them was World of Wonder.
Yeah.
Do you know what else they produced?
What?
The first, like, 7 seasons of RuPaul's Drag Race.
Wild.
And I was like, that's crazy. But on the other hand, like, I remember watching those first few seasons of RuPaul's Drag Race and being like, oh, this is a lens I don't normally see. Mm-hmm. So it was interesting for me to be like, oh, this company must, like, look for lenses that aren't straight white people.
What is your final rating?
I think I'm gonna give this, like, 4 stars.
Same.
I really liked it.
It's a solid flick. It's so good.
I almost rewatched it.
Honestly, yeah, like, now that we're talking about it, I'm like, I want to go back and watch it again.
Because I feel like I would get more out of it knowing more.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, after watching it the first time and you kind of know where things are going, I guess I have one more other thought that I'm just putting together. Not just, but, like, the fact that bad things happen through the window, like, endings of things happen through the window, where you see Benny looking out the window when Reba gets hit by the ice cream truck. And the ice cream truck didn't even give him any ice cream. Didn't give him any ice cream. He's like, here's your dead dog. Doesn't even give him ice cream for it.
In a trash bag.
So sad. But at least he stopped to help do that. Because I know somebody whose dog was hit by a woman like that, and the lady just started yelling at her, and she's like, my dog is dead. And she's like, well, pick it up. And she had to, like, pick up her dead dog.
Jesus Christ.
She was, like, in high school, and I was like, oh my god, that is a terrible story. And I was like, that's bad. Anyway, don't speed in Lodi, because you might hit somebody's dog and traumatize them forever. But, like, you see them looking out when Reba gets hit by the ice cream truck, and then you see them looking out the window when Benny's mom comes. Mm-hmm. And the other time you see them looking out the window is when the aunties come. Yeah. Auntie and uncle comes. It's not calm. It wasn't, I don't know. I just wonder if that's a thing.
I like it.
It's whatever. But yeah, 4 stars from both of us.
Yeah, 4 star. Next week, we are watching Gentlemen Broncos.
Heck yeah, we are.
This is a big favorite for both of us. Yeah. Both of our G movies we have both seen a billion times, so we kind of had to decide who got to do research for which one. Yeah. Watch Frybread, Face and Me if you haven't already.
It's a really beautiful movie.
Really good.
And, like, I don't know. normally movies, I feel like this, and then I'll be done. But normally movies, I feel like this, that are like really beautifully done, just so beautiful, are slow. Mm-hmm. This did not feel slow.
It did not.
It had good pacing. It wasn't that long of a movie. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It was just a solid movie.
Yeah. So if you didn't watch it already, go and watch it. Before next Tuesday, go watch Gentlemen Broncos. We'll be back to talk about it.
Oh, it's so good.
It's honestly such a fantastic movie. It's so good.
If you liked Eagle vs. Shark, you would like Gentlemen Bronco.
Yeah.
And then you should also watch One Magical Evening with Beverly Loughlin, which we didn't get to. But that also lives in that trifecta.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you for listening. You can find us on Instagram. We are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, Carrier Pigeon.
Amazon.
Did you
say that one?
Well, now I did.
Okay.
Yeah, so follow us, tell your friends
I wish we were on
about
Carrier
us.
Pigeon. How do you think the Carrier Pigeon would do it? Does it just land on your window and open its mouth and then we come out? Or does it have a little transcript?
It would be like, you know the bit where Stitch puts his finger on the record and opens his mouth? It would be like that. The pigeon puts its The pigeon puts its foot on your phone and opens its mouth, and our podcast is streamed to you. Well, thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening.
Find us on social media. Listen to us.
Consume media that you don't normally see.
Yeah. And come back next week.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.